Data is king.
Ah.
Because you know what? A credit card is data. It's not cash, it's data. If you have a data warehouse or a data bucket somewhere
Yeah.
that you can put your tools on top of, that your starting and ending point are in the same place. If we all work together where we can all plug in what we feel to be the best of class solution is.
This is Michael Beck here with Chad Horn and Tom Seeger.
Together.
We're back together again with Tom. Actually, we usually pretend that we have somebody back in the back green room, but somewhere along the way, the solution we use, what is this, Squadcast?
That's right.
They took away the green room function, right? And so for the last couple episodes, we'd have a guest on and we go, okay, we're going to talk about you. So just don't pretend you're not there. And when we
not do that anymore.
And we'll move it all in and post edit and we'll do all that stuff. And I just felt silly. In fact, I started putting a piece of paper over the poor person that was sitting there so I didn't have to see them and act like they're watching me talk about them as if I didn't think they're actually listening. Anyway, so we are here with Mr. Tom Seeger. Tom Seeger is a longtime friend. We know each other from back in Earl and how long ago? We go back like 10, 12, 13 years?
Somewhere in that area. Yeah. I mean, this is too small of an industry not to have crossed paths at least a dozen times by now.
Yeah, it's a good lesson in not burning bridges and keeping your nose clean too. It's just, there's so many people you want to keep knowing, like Tom. So Chad, I know this is a surprise. We had a placeholder. We didn't really know if we're going to have. Well, we're going to do something today, and then I was talking to Tom about some other stuff. I was like, oh, heck, why don't we see if he's got a minute? And he does. So this is awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. So Tom, thank you very much.
To talk, and I'm actually going to take it. Imagine that.
You never, absolutely never. And the funny thing is you're now. So you're doing a couple things. So let's get the world kind of caught up with you. Those that don't know you, your name's Tom Seeger, and what do you do? First off,
I'm a technologist. I mean, bottom line is, if it plugs into a wall, I've in my career, I was in the military for 10 years in electronic warfare. Dealing with very high-tech anti-ship missile defense and dealing with really, really expensive stuff, and had a real high opinion of my technical capabilities, and thought when I got out of the Navy, I'd walk right into the Pentagon and I'd have a $50 million job inventing something. When that didn't come to fruition, I realized I probably had to get a real job. And after I got out, I was running one of the first cyber cafes in the country in Pensacola, Florida.
Cyber cafe.
Cyber cafe. And this is going to be really, really weird when I tell you this, but I don't drink coffee, which it's going to come back twice in this conversation. So I started a cyber cafe without being a coffee drinker, and I was in the Navy for 10 years without drinking coffee. So
did you not smoke either? This is an anomaly. Wow. Okay. A lot of smokers in the military.
Yeah, you know what? I'm mentally ill enough that I didn't need to add extra chemicals, so I figured that I'll just probably stay with where I'm at. But having worked, in the high tech industry in the military, I got out and started running a cyber cafe and started working with the Gulf Power Southern Company and the IT department, which they called it Information Resources back in the IR. But then a friend of mine came over to my house and knocked on the door with a police officer and asked me to get in the car. And I thought I was in deep trouble because he showed me his badge and it said Criminal Intelligence Unit. So I thought well, it's what I was going to do. So he drove me over to a place in Pensacola called the Oyster Bar. And literally I walked in the door and the guy was frazzled. He had for 3 days, they had been without a point of sale working. And they took me upstairs and said, well, the POS is down. Can you look at it? I've never worked with a point of sale in my life. I was a computer guy with high-tech stuff, and working with a restaurant was the last thing I wanted to do. I felt it below me. But I walked in, and I looked at the screen, and it said, cannot boot. So I reached over, and without thinking, just being a computer guy, I ejected the floppy disk and hit the space bar and booted it up. Network came up. He had been on the phone for 3 days straight with the manufacturer. Nobody thought to say, take the disk out. And for those that have been around longer
than a star was born.
that's what started my career in hospitality. And he paid me with a damn hamburger too, by the way. So I found out how cheap the industry
It checks out.
Yeah, but it was a good burger. I got to give it that.
Yeah.
So from that day forward, I started working with him, and then a company called Barnhill's Buffet, which was really my first true job. We had 48 restaurants in 8 states, $110 million company. But my title was MIS director. So I went around for 2 years being the MIS director. So having looked for terms when the internet,
he's been dying to tell these jokes to people for a while. These have been in the bag. He's like, oh, I'm whipping out all the stops.
Yeah. So bottom line is that's what was my foray into true IT world and hospitality. I also have been in manufacturing, but now, most recently, I was the vice president of IT for 2J's, and then 2J's it was purchased, at least part ownership was purchased by Earl Enterprises. And after working with Earl for about 9-10 months, it just made more sense. As much as I was involved with Earl, helping them, that it made more sense to move me up here into the Orlando area. And I was down in West Palm Beach, and then moved up here to Orlando, and started taking over the IT leadership for Earl. And Earl's, I think it's at its heyday. It was close to $1 billion company, 14 different brands internationally. The flagship being Planet Hollywood, but you're also looking at dealing with Brio, Bravo, Bertucci, Buca, 2J's, like I said, Bravo, I think I said, Earl Sandwich, Chicken Guys. So we had company owned, we had franchisee, but we also had licensed environments. So we were environments where, if you go down the turnpike in Florida and you stop at any of the plazas, you'll see that they actually have the Earl Sandwich being run by Arias, which is out of Miami, and they license the product. And then also we created a new, and this is really, really cool with Earl. I got to give them 100% credit. They created a place in Topanga Canyon called Topanga Social. And
is it still there? That was not hit. That was hit during the fires though, wasn't it? Like that area?
I don't think the mall was. I think everywhere around, but I think the mall's fine. I may be wrong, but I think so. But it's like a huge food court, real upper level. So we're talking about, if you go to food court and see Sbarro's and all that, it's not like that, but it is a huge area. And in there they had, I think when we were 23 restaurants, all chef driven, all high end. But what was coolest about it was the technology, multi-basket, multi-location ordering from one environment. So I could go to a kiosk and order a taco, a burger, a glass of wine, a salad, and some candy from the candy shop in one order. And it was all the same back end. And then each of the individual areas were like mini channels to where things were fired off. And then everything came together to where the customer went and got their order. It could be a taco from one place, a burger from another place, a steak, a salad, candy, all arriving in one spot. And then they go sit down. But these are tables that have tablecloths, so a much higher environment. So really, really cool, kind of pushing the edge of what technology will do. It became really apparent to me that it was time for me to spread my wings a little bit further, and decided to go out, which is what I'm doing right now. And I've been looking to find a way to be an operator, but also I wanted to have some say on what it is I was doing. And that's been kind of tough to do, because it's tough to go to a manufacturer and say, yeah, I know you got your own model, but I do what I want. And go back to operator and say, this is what I want, but I can't get it. So I've been a fractional chief technology officer for MTech Mobility down in Central and South Florida area for quite a while now. Been working with them quite a while.
And for those that don't know MTech, what kind of products do they put out in the world?
It's a mobility company. They started out repairing the glass on iPhones and smartphones and tablets. Then they started selling and maintaining support. Now it's a full service company, managing some extremely large accounts, managing many multi-brand units, their whole point of sale, international help desk. It's mind-blowing what you see. And being the chief technology officer for their innovation lab has opened the door for me to do what I've always wanted to do, which is
play with stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. And somebody else pays for it, which is even cooler. So I have 17 point of sales in the innovation lab.
Oh wow!
Everything from NCR all the way down to my venue, and and working with Shift 4, working with CAR, working with NCR, and saying this is what I want. And they say no, and they say no, seriously, this is what I want. and this is what this restaurant group wants. And this, when I start looking at RTN and we all start coming together saying, this is what we want as an industry, there's a lot of power in that conversation.
So you're involved with RTN? Is that what you're saying also?
Yeah, I'm on the board.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm
I'm at Mertech every year.
Yeah, and it's always worth mentioning every time I hear RTN, because what's the message of RTN? And it's not my message to give, right? It's a bit. Can you tell us a little bit about standardization and the big mission?
You just did it. You said it exactly right.
A better way than I could say it.
You nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
RTN initiatives are focused on multi-unit restaurants, in the whole industry.
Yeah.
And coming together to make one voice to say, if we're going to have an API, if we're going to have a middleware application that interfaces with a vendor, let's try to get those standardized. Let's try to get it so we know and we can have an expectation of what the input is going to be.
Yeah. We
can work on another vendor on what the output should be, and we can spend less time. Just basically think of it as the journey that happened with USB. The old USB-A, then you had Firewire, then you had Mini, then you had Micro, and then every other variation of a connector out there.
Yep. And now we're down to C.
We will never, ever, ever go with that USB stuff. We're staying with Firewire. Wrong. Finally, the industry demanded it, and most everything is USB-C. And then the other thing about USB-C, and a lot of people don't know this, is it's bidirectional. Unlike having to have a keyed connector to where it can only go in one way, the USB-C is the same on both sides. So it doesn't matter what way you plug it in, it works. Therefore, they can have a non-keyed connector. It works the same way. It's extremely fast, and it will work across. So think about RTN as being that USB-C. We're trying to take different ways of doing things and consolidate them into one process, one way of doing business. And then we work with operators. We work with Xeric. We work with a lot of the big operators, and we all come together and we say, this is what we would really like. And then we talk about journeys. We look at, what is the journey for the person buying something? What is the journey for the person taking the order? What is the journey for the person at the restaurant and how they do it? And then when we come up with best practices, we put those out to the industry and say, this is what we've come up with. And then we meet on a regular basis to update it, to tweak it, to keep it. So RTN, if you're a multi-unit operator, meaning you got more than 2 restaurants, you should be a member of RTN. If you're an IT director, if you're a CIO, CTO, and you're not a member of RTN, and hospitality, even hotels, you're missing out, because this is where we have conversations about what's next, meeting people where they are, and then working together. It's not competitive. RTN, I can have a company that directly we're marketing against, but I can also, that was an amazing trick.
I know. I literally just aspirated into thin air and I'm back.
It was very much Star Trek-ish, and I loved it. But we can literally have people who compete in every way, but when we get together and we're at Mertech or we're having RTN town halls, I have never, ever asked one of my competitors, hey, how do you do something? And have them look at me going, go figure it out yourself. No. It's 180 out. They're like, dude, this is what we tried. This is where we failed. I think some of it was we were just stupid, or the end result is we get things done and we work together. It's very collaborative, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I decided to be a fractional, because I get to be an operator and I get to be a vendor, and I get to have a say in both worlds, and that means both worlds get the benefit, which it's been really cool.
That's
Tom, I'm sure you'll be able to tell us how you would see the role, which we haven't gotten into yet, that you have now with Ziggi, but what that would look like if the standardization had occurred. But from where you sit now, I mean, we've talked to operators and tech companies that would benefit from the standardization. What do you think a critical mass looks like, right? Because it gets to the point, I'm sure it happened with USB-C, right? It gets to the point where, like, all right, now it snowballs from there. What do you think that looks like in our industry?
Right now or in the future?
In the future, because we're not there yet.
If people adopt the standards, and it's just common sense, right? The end result is common sense. If you're going to have a first name field and you can have 255 characters, why limit it to 8? But if you're going to have 255 characters, can you have special characters? All these things have to be figured out, because that way, down the road, first name just simply means first name, whether it's a front of house app, whether it's third party, whether it's catering, whether it's your kiosk, it doesn't matter. All you got to do is bring first name in and it'll work. It's something that simple. So the reality is, prior to the pandemic, our technologies didn't talk to each other within the restaurant, nevertheless, between different vendors. Being able to receive an order, place an order, get your invoice, approve your invoice, have it automatically fall to inventory, count your inventory, which is something that we're going to be having some conversations with one of your companies I'm excited about. Yeah. Counting your inventory, having it automatically affect the solutions you're doing, rolling it from the customer all the way to the bank. That is the edge. And then that all comes about, and I know everybody who knows me will roll their eyes, and I'm good for it, is single pane of glass. Mm-hmm. The end result, what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of times we touch something, minimize the amount of time we need to touch something, and then be able to find it every time we're looking for it, right? So a dream of a single pane of glass where the single source of truth, another buzzword I use, used to be the point of sale. But now a point of sale isn't even a point of sale. Most point of sales are restaurant systems. They're not even point of sales.
Yeah.
We used to think of a POS, that's the front of house. I capture sales, I capture a little bit of labor, and then I do stuff with it afterwards. Now a point of sale, depending on who you're asking, could be everything from the third party all the way down and into the end of the front of house. And now it flows into the back of house. And many times you could even do your accounting within it. So depending what pieces you plug together and what companies you use, that journey is going to look different, but the process does not change. You're going to collect, you're going to manipulate, you're going to change, you're going to adjust, and then you're going to close it and send it out to the bank.
There's a pipe, there's data moving one way or another, right? There's an input, there's an output, and that you're trying to homogenize in a way that you're just understanding what's going to be going through the pipe so you can wire it correctly faster, right? Some people would argue, well, that takes some of the configuration out of the mix, but then that lets you do things that are so much better than all the switch flipping and minor code tweaks.
Well, it also makes
maintenance.
Yeah, there's where I'm going to go. It makes it easier because it makes best of class sit where best of class should. What I mean by that is, instead of IT departments at small companies spending all their time trying to figure out if their SQL server has the right patch to keep from getting breached, or do they have the right staff on hand to understand how to maintain the PII that they're required under the cyber requirements, and are they PCI compliant because they're doing certain things at their location that, quite frankly, they're not qualified, nor is their staff trained well enough to deal with that kind of stuff. If you put the onus where it belongs, let AWS, let Azure, let Google Big Data manage those things. It's when we had dial-up, it wasn't realistic to host large data outside because I'm running a big PMIX report, which might take a week, and every time I lose connection, it starts over. We all have dealt with that. But nowadays, even restaurants, I mean, at our Brownwood 2J's location 4 years ago, I was still DSL. That was my last one. Wow. But it was still DSL.
Wow.
And I wasn't getting 56K out of the 120 plus the 8 control channel. I wasn't getting it was maddening.
Wow. Hey, but well, let's pivot a little bit to you have so much going on, so many cool things. Let's talk about the brand side a little bit, because you are also on the brand, right?
Oh yeah.
And so there's a thing you don't drink, but you work with, and it is called
Ziggy
favorite
coffee.
Thing, coffee. Yes. And so
I love
in fact, I'm glad you don't drink coffee, because your energy plus coffee might not be helpful. I'm living proof of that. So tell us about it. Tell us a little bit about Ziggy's. Tell us about how you got there. And I know that, like, when we were talking earlier today, just jamming on some tech stuff, like, I'm going big and bold. We're going to just tear it down. I don't want to take your words from your mouth or put words in your mouth. Like, let's talk about what you're doing there.
Well, Ziggy's Coffee is the scrappiest company I've ever seen in my entire life. Honestly, these guys, I love every one of them. I love the model. I love the leadership. It is just the coolest place I've ever worked with.
Why?
Because they understand what they know, and they also understand what they don't know.
Okay.
Therefore, they came looking for me. They didn't know it when they were doing it, but now they do. They came looking for me when they reached a point to where they took what they were doing. For instance, they don't have a back of house right now. Everything they do is based off of multiple different processes that they've created, utilizing things like Microsoft Lists and Automate.
Wow.
I told them, you guys are, I do not know how you have been as successful as you are with the tools you have, but I have to take my hat off. And for my bald head, that's tough to do. But I have to tip my hat to them for what they've been able to achieve with the tools that they have.
Well, I'm going to jump in here too, and this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive for what we do and the things we really believe in. Is before in every environment, this is sales, this is transactional. Before any of the stuff existed, we still have to remember we could still do everything we do now without a lot of this tech. We could ring up transactions. We could have a guest experience. We could still sell without a CRM. We could still do a lot of
Oh,
things.
right.
Yes, yes. And so I love that you're implementing these things, but I do love the nod saying that these guys built a viable, fantastic business. But then what's the tech about? The tech is about squeezing that extra bit out, finding all the margin. And if they've never done that, you're on a journey to discovery with your friends.
Oh yeah,
Because they're going to find money.
I've had CFOs shake their head at me because at every training session I ever went to, I said, "This is your best friend. This is your best friend. Everybody knows how to use them. There's billions of them all around you, and you can count on them to work even in the dark." So the end result is everybody should know how to do what they do.
I'm stuck on the pen in the dark part. I know it works. I just don't know what I'm going to be putting down.
Brilliant. I just said it'll work. So, I mean, you know what? You got to do what you got to do. So what I found out was because of the way they've been doing business, they understand their business extremely well.
Yeah.
So coming into a company where they understand the processes and they don't have something to automate those processes for them, made them successful because they're experts at what they do.
Right.
So this is the cool part of what my job is now. I get to come in here and look at, you're doing these 15 things with 15 different tools that don't talk to each other, and you're having to brute force a square peg to a round hole. That's what I keep telling them all the time.
Yeah.
And I love that you do it, but how about we buy round pegs?
Yep.
So they just slide on through that round hole. And that's why they brought me in. They wanted somebody.
That's heresy. Round peg, square hole.
It is. Well, I just say beat the wall down and not worry about either.
Yeah.
But the end result is what we're looking at right now is a total understanding. And this is, again, the first company I've been able to do this with in a long time, that I was able to spend an entire 30 days studying the company and told them I will not give you a single recommendation on how to fix anything until I've met with everybody. We did a full video sending back what it is that I believe they told me.
Yeah.
I did a survey to ensure that I've collected anything that I may have missed.
Yeah.
Then phase 2 of the project, which is where I'm ending right now, is to take everything I learned and come back and then put them through filters of where I can apply technology. And I'm looking at that in 3 baskets. Number 1, what can I do in 90 days? What can I do in fiscal year 25? Because obviously it wasn't budgeted for in 24 because they didn't know what even existed. And then what can I do over a 3-year plan? So what we're doing right now is we're looking at all that. We're looking at, we have Rebel, and unfortunately we don't know what the future is with Rebel. Even Shift4 doesn't know. They know that later down the road it's going to go into their flagship project, right? Which is, one of their tools that they're working on now. The same thing's going to go with the Posse folks. There will be an end of life on those products, and it's not really clear. So looking at what are our opportunities there? Do we stay with Shift4 and work towards that? It's a conversation. Do I look at all the other point of sales out there? That's obvious I do that. And that's a journey I'm going on now. And shifting my 2Js or shifting my Ziggi's patch back to my MTech patch for a moment. The beauty of this environment is I'm bringing everything I want to test down to my Ziggi's lab or to my MTech lab, and I'm testing it there. Because at a restaurant corporate office, you don't have all kinds of lab space to be able to do that. So I'm able to look at that, and we're looking at completely bringing in a back of house. Can you imagine if everything that you do back of house, inventory, working with the labor, working with invoices, all the things you do in a back of house world?
Are you going to have shelving products and things to look at, count, and play with, or what's the full? Are you talking purely tech back of house, or some actual other things in there that are approximate?
No, it's even cooler because
IoT devices.
The innovation lab is sitting right in the middle of the MTech warehouse, and there's millions of items.
Ooh.
So real opportunities to look at something you and I talked about. So
they call this Candyland.
It is, and that's where I live.
Yeah.
So the end result is I'm looking at the entire tech stack, which is what I did at Earl, and it's where I've done everywhere. And I want to look at how do I intelligently consolidate the tech stack to where I have best of class solutions. Where that if I get into a relationship with a company and they go bust or it's not the right answer for our company anymore, that I can unplug that module,
Mm-hmm.
plug another module in, and continue working without a work stoppage. Those are the kind of things that I look at every day.
Yep.
And that's what I'm doing with this environment. But the very coolest thing that I'm doing is working with people like you guys who are experts in what you do and say, what can I do to fill this gap? You know, good old gap analysis. But everything comes back to RTN standards when we talk about this. Because if I build out my databases, my data warehouse, because this is the one thing I told you earlier, and I planned on saying this. So yes, this was planned. But for me, everybody says cash is king, and we got to get over it. It is not.
What's
cash
king?
is not king. Data.
Yep.
Data is king. Because you know what? A credit card is data. It's not cash. It's data. It just happens to be the ones and zeros are sitting over here versus over here. So data is king. So the reality is, if I can put my single pane of glass and sit,
can I download some money then?
You can. It's called Bitcoin. It'll cost you.
No,
you absolutely can. But if you have a data warehouse or a data bucket somewhere that you can put your tools on top of, that your starting and ending point are in the same place, then I can create an item for my item master that flows to my front of house, that flows to my kiosk, that flows to my menu board, that flows up to my third party, that flows up to my catering, that flows over to my banquet. And then all that flows over to my CDP, so I can look at my.
That's the holy grail you're talking about, my friend.
Yes, it is.
That is the literal holy grail.
But that's why we do this, because it's not about Ziggy's only. It's not about MTech only. It's not about any of the companies we work with. Everything from Fortinet to anybody in between, they all have a place at this table. But if we all work together where we can all plug in what we feel to be the best of class solution is.
So let's talk a little bit about what so you said in the first, after you did your triage or your analysis, and I absolutely love it. I know Chad vibes on a solid discovery, because I think in every process there should be, in sales, there's in technology, discovery is king, right? You find out everything you're going to do. Actually kind of learn a lot about the other party just by the merit of the questions they happen to ask you if you're the one that's being discovered. And so you said that you said I was going to go through and find the things that I could do in 90 days, the things I could do in the quarter of the year, and then after that's the 3-year and budget and long range plan, right? So are you in a position to tell us what you found on your 90 days? What
absolutely.
Yeah, what is going to be your bang bang impact, get out the door, or make some things happen?
Some of it is just simply taking the tools we're already using and teach them how to use them right, and then make sure that we consolidate. Look at Microsoft 365. You may have 150 people that have 20 different licenses in there because they were done at different times.
Sure.
And MSPs are not necessarily responsible for you looking at what you're paying and you making sure you're choosing the right thing.
Okay, so you're going to do some contract auditing and see that they're not overpaying for licenses they don't need.
Absolutely. And then the money I save, I'm going to go back to the bean counters and say, I want these things.
Yep.
And it's going to be a net neutral to you, because I took this bucket of money, I'm moving it over here. I'm not asking you for money. Now I get a big win. Now I can come back to franchisees, owners, employees and say, now we've got these tools. I've eliminated 4 moving parts. Now we have 1, and it fully integrates to this environment. So think of it as a bunch of Legos.
Sure.
Right? They didn't have Legos before. They had 10 different toys that none of them worked together. They all work
Tinker toys with mismatched parts.
Yes, exactly right. So that's what I'm doing right now. So in the short period, low hanging fruit, getting all of our videos to where when we're streaming them, they're in one place, but when we're storing them, they're over here, and we're not paying for the streamer to store stuff we're not using, and we're not trying to store from where we're storing them because it's not a streamer.
Chad and I literally had this conversation literally last night about where we put our video, then what we do with it when we edit it, and how we collaborate with it, and then when we store it, when we keep it, and then when we store it, when we publish it, and how we publish it at scale to every virtual channel that's out there. Like, that's another pain point.
You put it where it's cheap, put it where it's effective when you're sending it to a customer. The end result is, if you're sending something for somebody to consume, they have to consume it at fullness. If you're storing it, who cares? As long as it's safe. But it's important as a company that if you're creating videos, that it's not sitting on a third party only, or if they go bust, you lose it.
And then I also think that the other anchor is once you start getting to your point, the data, you can either send them a copy of the video, or you can send them a video where you can track and understand what they watched, how long they watched it, and what the consumption of the video was. Right? That's getting gangster, right?
Yeah, if you should, just like a landing page, you should be able to track who hits it and where they go from it. So you understand conversion rates and you understand what turned into a sale. If you coupon the hell out of everything and you increase sales, it may have nothing to do with the coupon. It may be that bus that pulled up after a baseball game. So the end result is being able to truly understand. But this goes back to what we were just saying. Data is king. Real-time actionable reporting turns into real-time adjustments, which turns into increased sales.
No, if you're looking at a report of everything that already happened, it's a look back and it's reactive. If you have the ability to affect, hey, I got to get people off shift because I don't have the traffic to merit having this other person, I can save not only the day, but also my profits, right?
Yeah, think about restaurant 20 years ago, 15 years ago. It took you 2.5 weeks to be able to close the book on the first week of the month because everything that you did was faxed into you the next day where you went in and made adjustments in your P&L.
No flashes.
Somebody did a $90 tip instead of a 90-cent tip. So 5 days later, they've got to go make an adjustment. Now, the front of house doesn't show that adjustment because that day is closed. So when you go back and you look at your actual versus theoretical, you're looking at your P&L, you're looking at PMIX, real time versus what's historical never match. Nobody believes the numbers. And then a month and a half later, when you're with your board of directors trying to close out the first quarter, May 1st, you're at these are audited numbers.
Absolutely.
Now I can go by if I auto batch out my restaurant at 2 a.m. at 2:01 a.m. I can run real-time reporting and see, oh, wait a minute, I've got somebody who put in 14 hours. No, they didn't. I adjusted it. They actually clocked that at 9, but they forgot, so it auto-clocked them out at 2 a.m. So being able to understand these parameters, look, we work in a world at 186,000 miles per second. For those that know, speed of light, right? We're not looking at something. Yeah, I'm a geek.
We're all just photons. It's okay.
Well, we are, and some of us are better looking than others, and I would be on the others. But the end result is being able to understand what's happening within your world and make adjustments. Being able to understand if you're running into overtime and make an adjustment to keep your
it's instrumentation is what it is, right?
Use the tool.
Go
dig a hole with a spoon, and you're not going to get anywhere.
You've talked around this thing, and I want to make sure everyone listening has an understanding of how where you're at with this. Right? So we're moving from a world where POS is king, right? And I think for many brands, it's still going to be for a few years. We understand, if those paying attention understand, you got to get to a data architecture first technology structure. What is your plan and path for Ziggy's to get to that? Right? Is that a 90-day thing? Is that a 3-year thing?
Already happening.
Happening.
Because remember, there's a technological source of truth, which is not what I'm talking about. And there's a logical source of truth. Technologically, I don't think we'll ever have a single pane of glass to where everything operates under the same exact rule. But we can achieve the same thing by what we were talking about with our standards. If I've got 10 different systems that are all using an API that shares logic and how they work, I can then bring source data to the center and go back to my scenario. I go in and I create a new item because marketing wants to do an LTO. It's a brand new item. I create that item in a center place. Let's just say I have a table with a dimension table where I do a lookup. And then I say, I want to send this, and this could be done right now. I want to send this to my point of sale. I want this third party, but I don't want it on my menu board. I'm not going to sell this on my menu board. I hit push. Right now, again, things move quickly. Let's just say 5 minutes. Let's be ridiculous, and it's just going real slow. Within 5 minutes, it can be living wherever it needs to live. That can happen today. People are pulling stuff from spreadsheets and doing stuff. I mean, Ziggy's right now, again, they're taking spreadsheets and lists and doing things that many more powerful systems cannot do. That's where I'm in a great position with this because I'm simply going to take systems that natively do what they want to do. I just want them to work together. I don't later, if we decide we're not liking the way we're doing something, want to have to rebuild a system. I want to be able to create an in and out connection to where I can unplug it. But getting back to what you said, Chad, I want to be able to very quickly, and we're already doing this, the single source of truth at Ziggy's right now, logically, is actually going to be Office 365. Because there's where my Active Directory environment, when I create a user, when I terminate a user, all my rights, all my thoughts start there. And from that, all of the systems I'm going to be bringing in are going to be SAML, they're going to be Okta, they're going to be something that prevents me from having to individually manage them.
How many Ziggy's are there?
Right now we're at 100, 300, 400. Every day we're opening a new one, and I can't keep track. But we're right around 103 to 105.
Okay.
We expect to be around 140, 150 by June.
Ooh.
And this time next year, see what happens. So that's
nice.
what I was telling the team. We need to do this right now.
Yeah, you get ready to scale.
Because the end result is in 2 years, this will be extremely difficult for us to unplug and start.
Well, it sounds like if you're doing that too, then there's a fresh set of FDDs that probably have to roll out. If you're going to say, here's a recommended tech stack, here are the things that we know are going to be best practice, and maybe a tech fund that probably doesn't exist right now.
Exactly, that's true.
Yeah.
So this is where we're able to do this, right? Because in the end, there's going to be people listening to this, and somebody's going to say, "Tom, I agree with that, and I have an idea." Hit me on LinkedIn, because right now, even with Ziggy's, if it's not right for us, that doesn't mean I shouldn't know about it, because I could go to MTech, or I could go to my buddies at BJ's, or I could go over to Duffy's, or I could go over to Outback, or everybody I talk to, Zarek and Pyback, and say, "Hey, I heard you were having, did you know about?" That's what we do, and we will help each other. I've spent many hours on the phone working with other companies that I get no compensation for, never thought about it, but the end result is when they're successful, they remember that. Yeah. And then when they find something I need, they prevent me from tripping and falling by helping me make the right decision the first time.
I read something recently, just in it. I don't know if it was, I think it was just generic, but it said at this level, we don't compete, we collaborate.
Well, if we don't,
right? I mean, we may, but I think more of the conversations with your peers are more collaborative and competitive.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about it. Think about virtual brands. Let's talk about collaborative for a moment, right? We have a kitchen space, and you guys know I was with Earl, and a sister company to Earl Enterprises is Virtual Dining Concepts, Mr. Beck, and a lot of the others. So for quite a while, I sat in both seats as the CIO for both, and I will tell you, I was extremely
weird looking chair.
Yeah, well, it's this chair I'm sitting in now. You're right. Not pretty. But the end result is to be able to understand the complexities between a brick and mortar, a virtual brick and mortar, a ghost environment, which a virtual brand by definition is not a ghost brand. A ghost brand is something that, or a ghost kitchen is a location that sits in its own environment producing product for other people. But if I go and I go to a Beast Burger, or I order a Beast Burger, it could come from a 2J's, it could come from a Wendy's. They're not ghost kitchens. They're just kitchens with extra capacity.
Right.
I could go spend up a kitchen in a local mall, not put a storefront on it, and I could be selling Pizza Hut, but I could also be selling Mariah's cookies or whatever else out there.
Or maybe there's a breakfast day part, and you're trying to serve it because you're paying rent and need to use the space and make money.
Yeah, if I've got a cook and I've got a griddle sitting there, and they're cooking the same beef, throwing a different sticker on it, and I could, I'm losing a little bit of money because I'm paying a royalty and I'm dealing with a third-party driver. But in the end, it's all about keeping the tables full. It's all about turning the tables and making satisfied customers. And in the end, and this is
giving your employees work, right? They need to make money.
EBITDA,
Yeah.
It's about EBITDA, and it's about what kind of cash am I at when this is all said and done.
Hey, Tom, and we just covered a lot of ground. We got to have you back for sure because there's so much stuff to cover. I think this would be an interesting subject. Chad and I just got back, pretty recently in January. We went to CES, right? And that is the future is now, right? Like next time you have to come with us, we'll just totally jam and geek the hell out.
That would be fun.
I snuck into a helicopter I wasn't supposed to be in. It was great. Anyways, but I think this will be an interesting perspective for me because the stuff you're talking about is saying, let's take the restaurant of yesterday or some of the restaurants of today into the present, not necessarily the future. Let's get them in parity with systems and things that will make them accelerate and valuable and help them distill out of all the things in the distractions and noise out there. What are the 4 or 5 valuable systems and solutions they need to put in knit really, really well to run their business, and everything else that might be something they want to add. That's now, right? But you're looking, like you said, 3 years in the future. What do you see as being the next thing that's coming out of the pipe? Like Chad and I found out, and especially since you're so well knit with Mertech, we realized that Startup Alley, or what do they call their is it Startup Alley?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. We realized that there was a disproportionate number of brands that were doing or companies that had a very certain functionality, and it was surprising to us what that function was, and that it was actually a dominant feature. Can you tell us a little bit about where you think the hockey puck is going?
Well, you got Startup Alley, Ring of Fire.
Yep.
Those are 2 really important ones, and we do Shark Tank, where we grill the hell out of people.
Wow.
We're very nervous, and we treat them good at the end. I love that. It was a lot of Where in 2 or 3 years, as far as an industry and things you're going to see in Startup Valley in 2028.
Is POS in your pocket yet?
Honestly, I don't think there'll be a word called POS in our.
Remember that thing we used to use? It was real. Up. No.
Yeah. Honestly, I think everything becomes a POS. Let's go back to single pane of glass because here's the dream I have. I work with Samsung a lot.
Yep.
Every TV is a menu board.
Yes.
Every TV could be a point of sale. It could also be a pop material. Could be marketing. It is marketing. It's a TV. So it's a input-output device.
Yep.
And depending on what we do with it, I can even take a static TV and put LEDs around it within a frame and make it a touchscreen. That's something you do with a USB. It's already out there. You can buy them on $200-300 on the internet. So the issue is, I think what you're going to see in 2 or 3 years is the interoperability against legacy systems that are really good.
Yeah.
That have been able to move into a modern world.
Yeah.
And allow systems like, and here's the big dream. There are a lot of people that, I don't want to say stuck. That's a negative connotation, not wrong, but it's a negative connotation. If you're in an environment where you're using table service for NCR, it's been around for a long time. It's stable, but I wouldn't say they do a whole lot of development on it to make it much different than it was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So if you go away from an Aloha table and come back 4 years later, it's going to take you about 10 minutes to get back up to speed on what's changed, right? Stable, but not really advanced. But here's the cool part. Those restaurants who have millions of dollars in infrastructure that they pay for, that they just can't abandon to go to the next new thing.
Yeah.
You're going to start seeing layers of technology allowing these legacy systems to behave like they're a brand new, fully interoperable system, because a lot of these little companies have finally learned, and this is where other companies made mistakes. Building a brand new point of sale, back of house, and getting to all work is great, but people won't adopt you if they don't know who you are, and you won't be able to get out there. So the reality is you're going to be always in a little niche environment. You're always going to work with 2 or 3, and it's going to take you 20 years before people know you. And by then, all that new stuff you built is now old, and you're not competing against somebody new. So meeting people where they are. If we've got 1,300 restaurant chain running on something pretty legacy, but all of a sudden we free them of what was tying their hands.
Right.
And then allow them to have portability, which is what it's all about. Allowing them to have, imagine a sneeze guard at a restaurant with the clear screen using a Samsung.
You use your phone instead.
Well, yeah, that. And the other thing about it is the sneeze guard is clear, right?
Right.
But you know the clear screens from Samsung.
It's a display instead. Yeah, it's showing menu options, food. It'll show you calorie content, gluten allergies for the things beneath it. Probably when you're looking through the transparency.
Go ahead and order a replacement for my drink, or I can scan my phone with near field and pay. Yeah. This is 3 years from now. This isn't 10 years from now. This is 3. So the best friend to the restaurant industry, and I know people will hate me for saying it, but I believe it. I think the pandemic was the best thing technologically that happened to the restaurant industry.
It sure forced their hands, right? Yeah, it forced transformation.
It forced boards of directors to give seats to IT people where they did not before. IT was always only seen as a cost center. We were not there to give boards of directors recommendations.
You were the guys keeping the lights on.
And it was the guys that after they decided what something will do, will come tell you to do it. And then you get to break the bad news that they were not only wrong, but they were really wrong and it won't work. Because somebody at a trade show told them it'll work. Oh, yeah. You can get credit card numbers for all your customers.
Sales guy.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that argument for 10 years that, we can just call our bank and get all of our credit numbers for all of our customers and immediately apply it to our CDP. Never seen it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist in some environments. But the point I'm making is, it's going to be in 3 years an environment where all the systems that exist that survive this major growth that we're going through. Yeah. Because even my mom and dad, they've been gone for a few years, but even my mom and dad before they left were using smartphones and were doing things, and they were in their early 80s. So the thing that you talk about is it's not something. There are people scared to death of technology, but the end result is most people are embracing it. They're very comfortable with it. They're getting more and more comfortable with paying with near field and paying with facial recognition. I open my phone with facial recognition all the time. It tells me I'm ugly, but it still opens. But these kind of things,
screens and powers down.
Yeah, well, mine makes fun of me. I get out of my chair and it says, "I see you're exercising." That's fun. True story. I did it the other day.
Question. So, because Chad and I also had a conversation with the business leader yesterday, and a couple of years ago, it was everything is going to be moving to the cloud and everything's going into the cloud. And then it started slowing down on the into the cloud. And then we started hearing more on-prem coming back, almost like a wave of these tests, right? So, for example, I had a friend that was is a CIO of a burger chain. He was playing with a voice AI solution. He had to end up putting in hardware in the restaurant to be able to manage the processing that it needed and also lower costs, right? And then there's another company that we're talking to that, you know, they were all in on Edge. Edge is going to be it. Raspberry Pi on the perimeter, all the calculations done on the Raspberry Pi devices, and now those Edge devices are actually turning more into just gateways that then let everything else happen in the cloud. While I'd love to, I think that the cloud can handle everything. There's a connectivity dependency. That's the one thing that terrifies me about it in some ways. But where do you think that's going? Is it going to remain hybrid? Is it going to be, because sometimes you need the on-prem to get that, if your pipes are slow or you can't get enough data in the building, maybe, or computation, there's a fetch or a lag. So where do you think it's going?
This is my favorite question I get asked.
Ooh, tell me.
You get asked this a lot?
That was a slow pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm firm on this.
Uh-oh.
When you look at investing, what is the recommendation that every investor tells you? What should you do with your portfolio?
Diversify.
When you have your data, do you depend on somebody else and trust somebody else 100% that no matter what happens, if something goes wrong, your data is secure, even if you stop paying them? You can't afford to pay that service anymore, but your data is there. Is it still your data? Will they give it to you? Will they give it to you when you need it?
No, you want to ETL that out.
Right.
So you have it at all times too. Yeah.
Storage is cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I can reach over right here and find thumb drives, and well, it's my office. I can find everything. But the end result is I can find terabytes of storage space in 3 seconds and get it for $10.
Yes.
So I don't believe anybody that is ever been or ever will be in a technological position to manage a company to say, I hate the term cloud because it's just somebody else's computer that you don't know how to log into. But it's all cover marketing. But the reality is you diversify what you do to put the weight to where you need it. That goes back to the conversation about videos. You know, we use SharePoint. It's very inexpensive storage. I could put terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of videos in there, but it is not a video streamer, and it's chunky at best. It's terrible. That's not what.
Right tool for the right job. Yeah.
So I utilize a third-party streaming service, but I synchronize my environments. Therefore, if I drop a video in a certain folder, it's auto-synchronized up to where I need to be able to display it.
Yep.
I can control that. I can maintain who sees it. I can get demographics. If it's in SharePoint, I can't see who watched it. But if it's up there, I know who watched it. I know how much of it they watched. I know what IP address they came from. And that's just all inherent. But if I stop paying them, it's still where I own it. If they go out of business, it's still where I own it. So every cloud point of sale is dependent on at least a server at the location. They may call it Terminal 1, main terminal, Terminal 0, whatever, but it's still a server because when it loses connection to the cloud, it becomes the server. So server client has always been a thing. Somebody has to be the boss. Somebody has to be the CEO. Somebody has to be the boss of a network. So it should be diversified. You should put your weight of ownership of your data, things that you need to touch in a catastrophe. Whenever you have a hurricane, when something's wrong, you should be able to go get access to your data in your manner, because AWS may shut down due to a hurricane in Virginia. I'm not connected to the West, but I can go to my cheap SQL server and go find a table. And while it may take me 30 minutes instead of 2 to run a query, I can still get my data. I can still report to my board.
It's like when we were doing RFPs back in the day, you were asking, because the data centers weren't, as ubiquitous as AWS. It was, do you have geographical redundancy?
Exactly.
When you're understanding where the data lives, because in case there is a massive problem, then your data is safe somewhere else on the other side of the country or planet.
Well, heck, if your EDR program that's out there to protect you all of a sudden decides that everything it's getting that's appropriate is no longer appropriate, shuts half the world down. So being able to make sure that you control what's critical to your business, but yet still put it where it needs to be so you can function with the most efficiency. So the answer to your question, it's both. You simply just choose where it needs to operate, but always own and maintain what is yours. Never, ever depend on somebody else to be the source of truth for your data. It should be something you own.
That's all solid stuff. Chad, you're saying something?
Yeah, Tom, I mean, you get technology at a higher level than most people, and you got a team of people around you, right, from the executives down to the frontline worker.
Correct.
How do you bring the team along with you on this journey and with this vision when they don't get 90% of what you're talking about?
The cool part is you convince them that you do,
Mm-hmm.
and then you work with them to let you do it. But the end result is you meet people where they are. You know, I've got CEOs that are very technical, and when I sit down with them, they want all the details.
Yeah.
And then of course they ignore them and do what they want to do anyway because they're CEO.
Yeah.
I've got CEOs that they want top lines, and then when I give them the top lines, they start digging into stuff that they don't understand, and then they hate it and walk away. And then they tell me, and then I've got some CEOs that, quite frankly, want to know what I can do, when I can do it, how much is it going to cost, and they hired me because they trust me to get it done. So to answer your question is you meet people where they are. If I'm in a restaurant and I'm talking to a server and they're saying, this doesn't work for me, it's broke. It's important to ask them, what do you mean? Because I may be troubleshooting a terminal when they mean by it's broke that they can't find that modifier for that particular burger, and it takes them 10 minutes and it frustrates them to death. Or can't swipe their credit card or their gift card to charge it. They have to scan it because their credit cards are encrypted. Asking questions and meeting people where they are and knowing the team that you're working with, you have to be able to talk technical with the technical team. You have to be able to talk, and I'm really good at using analogies. In fact, I do way too many. But it's literally just trying to talk to people without talking down to them.
Yeah.
But trying to get them to where they feel comfortable that they understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, there's a little embarrassment there too. You know, I feel like I should know that, you know, and so and people are actually sometimes afraid to ask questions or ask the question again because they don't want to feel like they're being reprimanded or being perceived as less. Hey, this is
talent. You got to work it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And we are definitely at time, and there is so much more to go. So I hope that you'll consider coming back on with us, Tom. There's just so many good things you have to offer.
We should do something from Mertech. Maybe we can follow up at Mertech and do a live stream from there or something.
Yeah, let's put a table, have a cast. I'll bring all the
Yes.
gear, and we can do a show from Mertech. Absolutely, 100%.
And anybody else going to Mertech, come see us. I mean,
you heard it here first. Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And you guys are my friends. I will anytime, anywhere you want to get together and we want to talk about what's going on in the industry, I will make myself. I love this stuff. This is fun.
Well, maybe one of these times we just actually do like a comedians and cars, but you just come down and barbecue, and we do this live while barbecuing, eating food, and doing a broadcast. Right? I think you just have to go clean yourself after the look you just had on your face when I told that was going to happen.
Yep, we'll have to bring some Ziggies to give everybody.
All right. Well, hey, Tom. Honestly, it's a privilege. The ground you've covered, the places you've been, and the places you're going to take Ziggy's and any of the companies you work for or with. You have a pedigree. You've done some great things in your career, and we're excited to see what you're going to do next and where you're going to take our industry next. So
the honor mine to be able to come on with you guys is just guilt by association. Yeah. I look forward to the fact that people say, "Hey, he knows them." That gives me credibility. So I
hopefully you're still employable after this moment. It's just
you know what? I'm almost too old anyway.
There you go. Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, Tom, be well. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Chat GTM podcast. I'm Michael Beck. That was a handoff. Chad?
To me? Chad Horn.
Yeah. See, you did it. Good. Yeah. And that is Tom Seeker, our wonderful guest. If you want to find Tom, you can find him on LinkedIn. If you're interested in the RTN, Tom, what's a good way to get a hold of RTN? Who's the people you should call?
Yeah, just simply go to Google and Google Restaurant Technology Network or Google Mertech.
Yep.
We've got the Mertech coming up here in the next month.
And where's it going to be?
It's going to be in Las Vegas.
Is it the Paris again?
No. No, it's going to be across the street.
Oh, okay. It's Caesar's Palace. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. And it is going to be awesome. It's going to be one of the best attended ones from what I'm hearing so far.
Really?
So yeah, check out RTN. And the other one that I would recommend for those that are interested in training a little bit more is IFBTA, International Food and Beverage Technology Association.
Reach out to our friend Lauren Selman over there. Yep. She's fantastic. Absolutely.
You get some of the best of the best. We are fortunate in our industry, especially right now, to have some of the most giving and caring people I've ever met in my life that work in this industry. And while we can be gruff, and when we're in a restaurant, we're working behind the scenes, it's almost like being back in the Navy. But what I will tell you,
Make a hole.
yeah, well, yeah, people will flat naturally get your back in this industry.
Yeah,
I've had that short period of time that I was looking for my next opportunity. I was not without people helping me out and looking for me, and that's a testament to the quality of the people that we have.
That is a great thing to close on. I love the fact, and I think that's what keeps us here, or at least for me, and Chad probably the same way, is there's just such a sense of, and it seems disproportionate to other industries, and maybe other people feel this way in the businesses they're in, but I've never felt it anywhere I've worked outside of in the hospitality space. The amount of love, the amount of generosity of time and treasure and intelligence and wisdom that's available to anybody that seeks it out. It seems like if there's anybody that wants to learn, there's a teacher available here.
Yeah. So shout out to Ziggy's Copy.
Woo,
try out our Dirty Soda program. It is brilliant.
Send me 5 pounds. I'll let you know how good it is.
There you go. And then, no kidding. And then MTech Innovation Labs down in Jupiter, Florida.
Boom.
Check them both out. But y'all have a great day, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Tom.
Bye-bye.